First of all, welcome to another edition of Behind the Bench presented by the National Soccer Coaches Association of Canada. And today my guest is David Wiebenga. Did I say that right, Dave?
Wiebenga.
Wiebenga, okay. And I've known David for a while. He's out of Kansas City, United States. He was a professional soccer coach and is now coaching high school level and at club level. Plus, he was running a lot of courses for the United Soccer Coaches for goalkeeping. And we're going to talk about how goalkeeping position has changed and look at some of the new and modern things that are happening in that. But Dave, if you give us a little bit more of an introduction to start off, that would be great.
Well, first of all, I just wanted to take the opportunity to thank you and your organization for providing me the opportunity to do this. It's quite an honor to be considered for this. So super excited about that. Born and raised in this area, grew up with the game, became a full-time goalkeeper at about 13, and played the position through a number of changes with the position as the FIFA laws began to evolve over time, particularly speeding up in the 90s. Played in college here in the States, and then went on and played some D3 soccer in the USL, and then was fortunate enough to actually head up north into Canada, where I played in Calgary for a year. Came back here to the States after that and picked up a full-time teaching job, where I've been here at Lee Summit High School for the better part of 18 years. And I've also taken on the role of the head men's and women's soccer coach. And then I had a goalkeeping training business for better part of probably 12 years. And then in the last 5 years, I've actually been working for a large club here in the Kansas City area, Kansas City Scott Gallagher, and where I'm now the goalkeeping director and oversee all the goalkeeping curriculum and vast majority of the goalkeepers in the club. So it keeps me really busy. Married, 4 kids, one about to graduate in about 3 months, which is kind of crazy, or actually less than that, about a month and a half. So it keeps me busy.
The time does fly, doesn't it?
It does, absolutely.
So before we go on, if anyone has any questions at any time, you can type something in the chat or the Q&A, and we'll try and get to any of your questions. And also, a little bit about the NSCAC, the National Soccer Coaches Association of Canada. If you'd like to become a member, you can go to nscac.ca and look at the different memberships that we have. And one of them that we have is the one with that combines our membership with the United Soccer Coaches membership at a special rate that they've given to Canadians. So if you're in Canada, you can apply for that, called the North American membership. And we'll just start with that. Dave, I think we met at one of their conventions, which is one of the biggest conventions for coaches in the world. And it used to be called the NSCAC, now called United Soccer Coaches. They run diploma courses down there, and you used to teach that course. Anything about that course that you'd recommend?
The courses are really designed. We're one of the few platforms that actually has a goalkeeper institute, and I've been privileged to be a part of that for about the last 7 years. As one of the national staff coaches, so I teach some of the introductory level, the mid-level up to the national, and they're really good programs for any coaches looking to add knowledge of the position of goalkeeping to their repertoire, or in time, actually, if they are a former goalkeeper and want to learn the methodologies and become a full-time goalkeeper trainer, whether it's with a club or their own, strike out on their own, like I did for a number of years. I'd highly recommend the courses, because one of the big things we believe in is coaching the coach, not saying this is what you have to do. We're pretty well aware that our external factors in our environment are not the same as yours. And so it's more about us equipping the coach with the necessary tools to then implement back to their players in their environment. So versus being told, hey, this is how you do it. You have to run my session. Or, you don't know what you're doing. And that couldn't be further from the truth.
Right. And that course, if I'm not mistaken, actually was started by our own former president, Tony Waiters, and that coach.
Yeah, in coordination with Tony DeChico.
Tony DeChico.
Unfortunately, he's not with us any longer.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's Tony, and he would be really happy to see Canada in a World Cup.
I'm sure. Yeah. And by the way, congratulations. That's fantastic. I've actually, I've talked about that some. I've been very, very impressed with the Canadian style of play and the application of the game, and I'm excited to watch them. That's good.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of what Tony wrote in some of his books and a lot of the teachings that he did, and the coaches that have come through a lot of his sessions is probably one of the reasons why Canada's done so well. Tony always stressed in anything that he did, and even if you read some of his books, and is that players have to love the game. Quite often they come from street soccer, and the message he gave to coaches was you have to make sure that players that you coach love the game, and then that's how you get better. But one of the interesting things that you mentioned in your intro was that you started goalkeeping at 13. And here you are, you played pro. At the time there weren't maybe some of the options that there are today, but playing at the pro level, but starting at 13. Do you think that goalkeepers maybe could start later than some of the players who need all those ball skills?
Yeah, and that's a hot topic conversation, John. As far as when does specialization happen? When should that happen? And there are a number of examples. In fact, I've actually been looking into this in some detail as far as goalkeepers, when are they coming to the profession? And there are some great examples today of high-level elite pro goalkeepers that are playing in the EPL, in La Liga, in the Bundesliga, places like that, where they didn't come to the position full-time until they were 14, 15 years old. David De Gea is one of them. There's a few others. Oh man, I've got a list that I actually wrote down because that became a pretty big topic that I started looking into, and actually started talking with some former professional goalkeepers here in the United States about. Is I just got on my phone and just started texting them and say, hey, when did you become a full-time goalkeeper? Because I loved what you said about how our number one goal as coaches, especially with our youth, should be the love of the game. We want to make this a lifelong game. And that's something that we've taken, especially at the club level, where we don't train any of our 7v7 kids or younger at the goalkeeper position full time. We've gone to a model where they have optional training twice a month that they can come into. And then once they get themselves more established, understand the game more, and we identify them as, hey, there is an ability to play this position. They're a good player, but there's a little bit something different. Maybe it's a physical attribute. Maybe it's they have the ability to jump really well, or we're seeing that they have good hand-eye coordination. Then we start pushing them towards that more role within the team as far as becoming a full-time goalkeeper. So yeah, but there's plenty of examples out there of people coming late to the game.
Right, and I think with some of the new things that goalkeepers need, such as ball control.
Absolutely.
You don't want them to forget about that part of the game. And we're talking about changes in the goalkeeper. And that's probably one of the biggest ones if you want to go through some of them.
Oh, absolutely. Probably the number one thing that changed the position has to be the pass back rule. That was implemented in the early to mid 90s, kind of in phases. We went through some crazy things like, they can
5-second rule, I
yeah,
think.
5-second rule. They could throw it into you and you could pick it up. And then we finally saw it all fleshed out to where it is today, where, heading, chesting, indirect contact back to the goalkeeper, able to, within the law, to pick up the ball. But as a consequence of this, the goalkeeper was no longer able to be just a shot stopper. Teams also were not able to delay through their goalkeeper as well anymore by passing the ball back and him or her picking it up and effectively killing off a match. Now the goalkeeper had to become very integral in the build-up phase, in the defending phases, obviously in the attack phase, with his or her feet. And that's one of the big reasons why at the club, even when I'm coaching at the national level with the association, we emphasize so much on keepers being integrated into team sessions, even possession exercises, small rondo activities, whatever it is, because they also need to be able to identify those key communication pieces, whether it's visually or understanding, the team shape, those types of things, and then making good decisions with their feet. So, yeah, but that was a huge one as far as that goes.
Yeah, I think that is one of the biggest changes that we've seen. I think Canada got lucky in one of their games in qualifying when I believe Haiti, the goalkeeper messed up a pass back and
it ended up
I
think it rolled into the back of the net,
we were
something along those. Yeah, I remember that.
like that.
It was one of those things. As a goalkeeper, it got to my heart because it was like, oh
yeah, I know.
And,
I feel so bad.
and in some of those nations that are not blessed like the U.S. and the Canadians and the Mexicans in CONCACAF to have all the funding that we have, and to see that happen to a young man, where it's a nation where they're not fully funded. Oftentimes, vast majority of the players are amateurs. To have that happen to him on a world stage is it's tough. Yeah,
and the fields maybe weren't as nice as they are here.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that's probably another thing that might have changed in the game. I remember, the front of the nets was a patch of dirt. Whereas now we're seeing much better field and turf. How's that changed?
It has. Obviously, it's sped the game up, for one thing. Especially the artificial turf. It's really sped the game up. So the decision making, in some instances, for the goalkeeper has diminished. It's dropped. So the decision has to be made faster, especially when covering the distance between the back line and the goalkeeper himself or herself. Then other things, you do get a little bit more true bounce. You do get more skipping off of it, especially when it's wet. That ball will pick up speed. And if it's especially hard, you get that very awkward high hop that going to try to win that high hop ball and under pressure. It's tough. It's not easy. But yeah, you're not getting anymore the proverbial ball bounces, hits the tuft of grass, and then it kicks off way off to the right any longer, that's nice. Okay, that's fair. But you trade one for another. So,
I guess the other part of the game that's changed is goalkeeping gloves.
Yeah.
I remember back in the day, I played as a keeper myself. We basically didn't have gloves.
Right. Yeah. I mean, they started off with very simplistic, and now they've gotten quite complex. And some of them, I just look at them just like, wow, this is, it's John, to be honest, it's kind of a double-edged sword. It's good because the ability to catch or the opportunity to catch, let's put it that way. The opportunity to catch is higher because of the material made, being able to receive a ball. However, I think sometimes the goalkeepers are now relying too much on the glove to do the work instead of the eyes guiding the ball into the hands, or even just hand strength, building up that hand strength and be able to hold a shot, because we also have to look at it from the other part of it. The ball has changed.
That was going to be my next question. The ball has changed big time.
Yeah, I mean, with the dimples and the lightness of them and whatnot, the ability of a player to now change the spin on the ball faster, or to make it knuckle or a dip, and some of that is to theoretically increase scoring in the game. I don't know how much I personally buy into that, but I know from a goalkeeping handling standpoint, in training, it's different, with those little notches and grooves on a ball, as far as, trying to get to fly a little bit more true. But yeah, as technology changes, the position is having to change, just like as the rules change or the laws change, the game is changed as well. So I know one of the things that we're influencing or talking about a lot more is the handling aspect and being cleaner with the hands. And doing a lot more just repetitive catching, and building up that strength, especially as the ball has adjusted. So, yeah.
Do you think that the art of punching a ball on crosses is, don't see it as much as maybe in the old days, or I
Yeah,
don't see it as often.
right.
Goalies are trying to catch it, or
Right.
it's not completely gone, but
no, I think we should always go with the highest quality action first. So, especially in training, unless I'm being intentional about training punching, everything is about catching. Even in those situations, I would rather have a player fail catching than intentionally punching, not knowing if he or she could have caught the ball. Because ideally, we would like to, as a goalkeeper, end the attack immediately. Because by definition, when you go punch, you're out of position for wherever that ball goes. So now all of a sudden you're having an adjustment, where if you go up and you intercept it in the air, attack over. Now now you're attacking. Now you're seeing a counter. But as far as is punching, I think another reason that we're not seeing that so much is that flighted ball isn't there anymore. We're seeing more and more teams where the objective is to get in behind, exploit the space in behind, and get into that little spot around the edge of the 6-yard box in the inline, and then slot that ball back across. So now we're seeing a little bit more importance played into the goalkeeper's ability to intercept that second goal cross coming across the face of the goal, with that onrushing attacking mid or striker looking to just pass the ball into the back of the net, versus, in the 90s, we were seeing that long, deep cross played into the 6. That's still there in some teams' application of the game. So yeah, the goalkeeper has to be able to deal with that situation. But the game is evolving, and it's changed in that aspect, as far as how often you're seeing that big cross, and also the type of cross. You're seeing a lot more whipped in crosses where, yeah, maybe the punch is a little bit more preferred because of the speed on it. They're just not able to. And I'm seeing a lot more of the single hand punch, just to get a piece of it and just change its directions, just change its trajectory just a little bit, to disrupt the ability of that striker or that midfielder or the central defender on a corner kick or whatever it is. Punching is definitely still, it's an art. It's probably something we don't train enough of, but I still think in the hierarchy of what a goalkeeper needs, that's a really an advanced action that we probably need to focus on more at the senior level, and less maybe at the junior level, where still catching, getting them willing to go into traffic to go deal with those types of things is probably more important. Because I don't want to, if you think of it as thresholds, and the brain operates on those thresholds, well, if every time a player has a stimuli of a ball flighted, but all we've done is train the threshold of punching, then we constantly go to punching. Well, I think it's better, it's a higher quality application if we train instead the primary threshold to be triggered by that stimuli of seeing that ball flighted into our box should be catch. And then if it's not catch, then the change becomes punch. But we should always go with the highest quality.
And in terms of training keepers, have you noticed some of the things? I know you said you've been working on doing some studies and looking.
Yeah, I can get into that a little bit. So yeah, the training has evolved quite a bit. It's not just the funny thing is we still if you think about it, if we all think about this really quick, we train the goalkeeper, or we expect the goalkeeper to be able to handle his situation or her situation in the box, in the 6-yard box, in the game. Yet where do we train them? Let's take them off the pitch because the team needs the pitch and go train them behind the goal or a separate space. So we don't even, a lot of times we don't even train the goalkeeper in the right space. So that's one of the things that has to change in the game that we need to start doing. There needs to be more collaboration between the boss, the head coach and the goalkeeper trainer, as far as where we're training that goalkeeper so that we get him or her comfortable in their space. But sometimes, depending on where you're at, you just don't have those facilities, and that's just our reality. But the adaptation of the training, I think the number one thing we started talking about was the back pass. I know in our environment, that's something we do daily. It's incorporated in the warm-up. Our players are constantly dealing with the ball at their feet and having just get comfortable with the simple basic actions of passing and receiving or kicking and trapping if we want to take it down even further. Trying to make things also where the goalkeeper is constantly having to think about what's the next thing I have to do. Because in the old way, we kick a ball, they'd be done. Kick a ball, they'd be done. What we're trying to do now, and what I'm trying to encourage my staff to incorporate, or other trainers that I'm having conversations with, is try to create an environment where they're having to think in a next action pattern, where I make the save and then maybe it's a quick distribution out to like a fullback or a center back that maybe I'm representing. I've got players striking a ball and then they have to do something different with it, or they go from this shot, catch it, to now all of a sudden they have to deal with a short little breakaway. But trying to break up the thinking patterns so they don't get comfortable and they're having to constantly think about what's next. Not, I'm done, do away with it, let's move on to the next one. And I think that's one of the biggest things we can do. The other thing, and I think this is an early conversation, and I'm beginning to have this conversation with more and more coaches. I'd be interested to talk with some of that's why I would have loved to have talked to Thiago today about this. Is the number of repetitions. If we think about the role of the goalkeeper in the team and what he or she does in a match, it's not a good day for the team if our goalkeeper is dealing with 10, 12, 15 shots in a row. Something is broken.
Yeah.
Something's going on. We've got two things. Either our goalkeeper is horribly out of position and we need to fix that, or we've got a team structure, a tactical issue that our opponent, or we're just being overwhelmed by an opponent who, quite frankly, we may have no business playing. And so I'm trying to create an environment in our situation where our goalkeepers are seeing or are thinking more about the quality of their rep. Can I do each catch as close to perfection as possible? Can I intercept each cross at a level of perfection? And then we only do that depending on the action. Catching, okay, you can do 10, 12 reps. That's not a very high impact activity. But explosive diving, for example, old school, the way I was trained and stuff like that, you went and did, 2 sets of like 10. Boom, boom, boom. Is that realistic? No. Instead, can we do 4 at perfection? How close can we get that to 100% action every time? And if we can do that, why are we doing more? We've already proven the competency. The player can do it. So I'm really moving our structure and our curriculum at the club, particularly, to a more quality based session where the emphasis is because that's our game. I may go 10, 12, 15 minutes without ever seeing the ball in our half. And then all of a sudden, boom, I have to do something. I better be able to do it at 100% effort because that might cost us a game. Because if you play a game where a team sits in, low block, and then all of a sudden they counter and you're not engaged in what's going on and you give up a goal, you lose 3 points because you've pounded the door, but that team's really good at that low block. And your strikers have been struggling. Your strikers have been baffled all day. We see it all the time.
All the time.
Getting that goalkeeper to stay engaged. This should be the hardest part of our goalkeepers training, is them staying engaged in the moment. Now in training, we can overload them, their bodies, make them do extra reps, make it more difficult. Sure, that's great. But in a game, oftentimes this is what I'm seeing. Is this exhausted? Is that player exhausted here because he or she has stayed so in tune with what's going on and communicating with his or her teammates and what their opponent is doing and how this game is playing out, that they are ready, even when they're doing nothing, able to make that critical save that we all need to see happen.
Yeah, and that's a big part of successful teams is when their goalies are making that one save at the right time. I mean, if you want to look at Canada qualifying, you know, their goalie Boron seemed to make that save at that crucial time to preserve the tie or a 1-goal lead. And quite often with younger kids, yeah, you're right, they can lose focus.
Right.
Is there any new studies on how to keep them engaged or anything like that?
You know, not that I've really looked at yet as far as that detail. I mean, a lot of the studies still involving goalkeeping is around like PKs. When we still have a lot of stuff around, you know, that and okay, thinking about penalty kicks and all that, which is such a microscopic part of the game. I think in many ways we get just infatuated with that, and there's so many other things like the engagement piece, like the training regimen, the balance of training, because I think sometimes we don't understand or we don't think about the consequence of those overloads on the player and their body. You know, an example I use, and it really works with this generation. I talk to my players about the concept. Okay, they all play video games. They all, you know, my son plays this Fortnite game all the time. You know, I played video games as a kid, but every player game has a life meter, right? Every time that goalkeeper slams his or her body to the ground, you're diminishing your ability, your life. It's going down and down. And you need to be able to keep that as fresh as possible for when you really need to explode. And when your life meter is here, that maximum action dive or intercepting the cross or the breakaway that you have to come sprinting off your line to get, or that ball that gets through and you have to run off and clear with your feet, you need that. Man, if you've been beating your body up for the last week of training, you might think you're ready because I did all these reps, I'm ready to go. But you may not be as fresh as what we need you to be on Saturday. So as trainers and as coaches, and I'm not talking just about goalkeeper trainers and goalkeeper coaches, as head coaches, this is stuff I've had to even take into consideration with my own programs. You know, this week, for example, I only had one match this week, but I've done 2 goalkeeper sessions with my goalkeepers in the program, but I still have to monitor how many reps they're doing to make sure that they are as fresh as possible when we're ready to play that match next week. So, yeah.
Good. The other thing that I've noticed seems to have changed is that, you know, there's videos all over the place. Even I've seen in the U9s and U12s, never mind high school level, where there's these new cameras that set up in 2 minutes and they're capturing the game. How's that affecting the goalkeeping position? Does it also, well, let's start with that. How does it affect the goal from a coaching perspective? Do you use it a lot to coach?
Let's talk about the camera. Keeper? Let's talk about the camera from two standpoints. Let's talk about it from analysis, which is probably the most positive benefit. We run a system here at school called Huddle. And it's all, I don't know. Has it gotten up to Canada?
Yeah, I've
This
heard of
huddle out there
Huddle. I
now?
think there's another one with Vimo, I think is
Vio,
another one.
Vio.
The
We use
VM.
Vio at the club.
Okay.
So I've seen both. Both are really good, especially for being able to, what I oftentimes refer to as showing the goalkeeper the mirror. Video doesn't lie. So if you get in a debate with a player, you sit down with video and break down video with them, oftentimes you can say, okay, well, we needed to dialogue over that situation, and now I understand your thinking pattern. Or you're not doing what we've asked you to do. And as a consequence to the team, this is what's happening. We need you to improve X, Y, and Z. For a goalkeeper, oftentimes is, are they effectively covering the back line? Are they making the right decisions? Are they able to identify key danger areas in transition or in our opponent's buildup? But then are we also able to then celebrate too, hey, this is where you got it right. See the improvement you've made? Because you engaged so heavily in this training, we're seeing these improvements. Let's see your improvements. So that's where we're really seeing the benefit of video, is being able to analyze and break down the individual player, the sectorial groups, whether you're talking about the back line or the midfield or the attack, or maybe just our flank attack, or maybe how we're dealing with flank defense or central defense, whatever it is. It's fantastic. The other part of video that is fascinating to me is what I call the YouTube clickbait. So we get all these kids and sometimes trainers that see all this slick apparatuses and stuff like that. I'll tell you what, John, I've been around this game a long time. None of those apparatuses have ever appeared in a match in my life. Why are we using that in training? If you need a couple players, get a couple players. What and now some people are gonna argue, well, the hurdles are for this and that. Okay, that's fine. But again, you're bringing things into the game that's not a part of the game. And that's something I used to do. And I'm bagging on my own self. I used to have to use those hurdles.
Right.
I used to do all that. But the more and more I've thought about the position and what needs to happen with the position and stuff like that, we need to go back and analyze the game and say, hey, how can we make this look as game-like as possible? How can we set up situations that replicate games in a bunch of hurdles, cones, and poles and stuff like that, who I used to use? That's not the game. Then
I'm going to agree with you on that one.
We're not getting that effective. We're not getting that effective transition. And as a trainer, I'll tell you what, you have to be able to explain that, especially to parents.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because the guy, you can struggle against the guy who does all the charades and looks like a great trainer. But if you really dial into some of those stuff, some are good, it's fine. But again, sometimes less is more.
Yeah.
Sometimes less is more. I'd rather look for a trainer and a coach that has a lot of knowledge, not a lot of subjectivity of those. Oh, you know as well as I do, and I love the convention. It's fine, but there's a lot of subjective stuff at the convention. That's kind of like they just want you to buy it.
Yeah,
they just want you to buy it. And the other thing is we have to look at, and this is something we talked about earlier. What is your environment? You don't have those. You don't have, when you go watch, one of the things that, and it's great because you get ideas, go look at the English FA. Man, they put out a lot of good videos as far as snapshots of their players training and environment, a lot of good goalkeeping stuff. Some stuff I've looked at and say, hey, that's useful. Some stuff I look at and I'm like, you know what? I don't have Jordan Pickford in my roster right now. I'm not working on that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't have Pope. I don't have those guys. I've got this kid who says he loves goalkeeping, and I said, okay, I'll go on this journey with you. That's who I have. So I've got to find a way to work in that environment. I've got to work in my environment.
Yeah, and I think a lot of coaches are in the same boat. And sometimes, I don't know if this is just a trend in my area, but it it seems like when you ask someone to play goal, you know, even at 14 or 13 or 12, and there aren't very many hands up like they maybe used to be. I don't know if you're seeing the same thing. Everybody
Yeah,
wanted to be a striker or a keeper. Now,
right.
no keeper, but okay. I don't know.
There.
By the way, before you go on,
I'm trying to reflect on that a little bit.
yeah,
Because you do, and I think it is. It's
is it just my
maybe there
neck
is
of the
some
woods?
truth that goalkeepers are born, not made, like especially when it comes to the thinking pattern.
Mm-hmm.
John, at what point does it ever make sense for me to say, "Oh yeah, putting my face near that ball, that's a good idea"? I just like to compete, and I was good at it, I guess. So, but yeah. Now on the flip side, I've got an 06 ECNL goalkeeper. Which are you familiar with that platform? The ECNL platform. It's the elite club national league. So it's our top club platform. It would be just underneath the Generation Next group, which is all the MLS teams and the few affiliates that they have to produce the entire league. But my 06 goalkeeper is similar to that. He's a kid that 4 or 5 years ago, I had to convince him and his father that Daniel, if you want to play at a really high level based on what I'm seeing in your ability, goalkeeping is where it's at. And he is taken to it, and that is a dangerous young man on the field. He is very good, very good. I've been very, very happy with his progress.
I know even within our own club, sometimes I think it was a fairly high level team last year that really didn't have a keeper, and it seems like there's only one keeper per team. I remember in my day, I'd have the competition for the job, and even with teams like Coach, to be 3 or 4. Now I'm barely getting one keeper at a tryout, let's say. So I don't know.
That's you brought up something about the one keeper per team, and I think that's another thing that we as coaches are doing our goalkeepers a disservice. And that's another thing we have to educate our parents on. John, how many strikers do you have on your team?
Everybody wants to play striker, but how many are really good?
Well, how many? But how many do you keep on a roster? 3, 4?
Yeah.
Oh, so they have to compete in training, right? In order to get the minutes in the match?
Yeah, for sure.
Why are our goalkeepers not having to do that? Just because they get to wear fancy gloves and a cool different shirt?
We're
not helping the progress of the goalkeeper if he or she's not having to compete within their own environment. And the other thing is, what happens if you go off to an event? Let's say you come down here and play in a big event and you bring one goalkeeper. Mm-hmm. And in your first match, your goalkeeper takes a finger off the ball off the pinky and dislocates it, and he's done for the weekend. Yeah. Explain that to the rest of your team.
It's hard, but again,
and so we have to educate people. I think it is healthy, and I think it's needed. If you can create a situation with 2 goalkeepers, that's great. And if they're splitting time at the youth level, so what? Yeah. And again, that's part of the education process, because if you go to any American college, and probably the Canadian colleges as well, or any of the pro teams, there's at least 4.
Well, certainly at that level, everybody wants to get there. I'm just wondering what's going in the youth and the younger levels.
But we're setting our goalkeepers and our families up for a complete false reality. Mm-hmm. You mean you're not going to have to go compete for minutes and time? And then some of them, you know what? They struggle at that next level. And I've seen it. So
you're having similar issues down there with maybe not enough kids wanting to be keeper, or their parents maybe don't want them to be keepers?
It depends on the age group. I'd be interested in maybe it's not a conversation for this podcast, but a conversation you and I could have later about some of your age groups and the size of your age groups. Because we've got a couple age groups down here, particularly in the Kansas City area, that are relatively small, and we've actually tied it back. Some of us are theorizing that it might have something to do with the economic recession here in the States in around 08, 09. And we're having really small groups, especially in our 08 groups, men and women. And we don't know if just families weren't having kids because they were fearful. Hey, you know what? You and I both know kids are not cheap. And were there decisions made? And so we've got this strange bracket of a year where and it might be interesting. The other fascinating one that we're interested to play out and watch is how big are the players that went through their growth spurts during the COVID lockdowns, because they were able to rest their bodies and got full growth spurts. Are we all of a sudden going to end up with a whole bunch of giants all of a sudden? So there's some interesting stuff that I wouldn't say I'm working on full time by any means, but I've got running around my brain that I'm talking with some other people about.
Sounds interesting. So just for the listeners who are here, if you have any questions, don't be afraid to ask. I guess you can raise your hand, Q&A, or chat. I think there's ways if you have any questions.
Yeah, I think that would be great.
I'm looking at how the goalkeeping position has kind of changed over the years, and some of the training things that are happening. Anything else you'd like to add in terms of just a position and maybe some special things that you've noticed, things that you do that might be different?
Well, I referenced this a study that I'm working on right now with a group that we're partnered with the club, and one of the things, well, actually two things on my mind. One involves flexibility and flexion, particularly in the ankle joint and in the hips. And what we've noticed, or where we have found, is a lot of our players have a lack of flexibility in that ankle joint. And as a result, when they position themselves, they're not able to effectively come forward onto the ball of the foot and get the weight going forward. Because if you really think about goalkeeping is not a defensive position. Goalkeeping is actually an attacking position where you're actually attempting to go win the ball. You're going to go catch it. You're going to go intercept it. You're going to go press and shut down an angle and close that window of time on that striker bearing in on you. And so the body should be coming forward, not perpendicular, or if there's absolutely zero flexion, you're falling back. So if you can't flex at those ankle joints and stuff like that, it messes with your balance. The other thing we're seeing as a result of that is the feet will actually rock in and the knees start coming in. Now, if you think about the knee, everything should be in line when we're making explosive actions. But if they're in, think about, what I've learned is a term called squinting, where the knees come in. So you end up with this kind of position, almost like an X with the body. Imagine the goalkeeper all of a sudden trying to adjust really quick and dive that way. Think about what possibly could happen with the knee, with the amount of pressure you're putting, because things are not perfectly in line the way they were intended to be. So this group and I, we've entered into, we took a bunch of measurements, of flexibility measurements, angles, that type of stuff with our ECNL goalkeepers and some of our national Premier League goalkeepers, and we're going to follow them over the course of the next year. And we've given them a stretching and stability regimen that they need to go through 2 or 3 times a week. And we're going to measure them at periodic times to see, are we getting more flexible, and am I noticing in training less of the squinting, more attacking positioning as far as ability to make saves, or saves not on the same line as the goalkeeper, but now they're on the next line. So the goalkeeper is going at an angle versus the same line, or what's actually even worse, going backwards. And we're finding that the kids that have very minimum flexibility to go forward, they're making consistently saves on the same plane, or they're actually falling back into the save. So that's one of the things I'm working on. The other thing is, I really believe, and I would encourage anybody that's listening, or anybody that will listen to this in the future, we need to do a better job as coaches and get our kids smothering one-on-ones versus this block save that we're seeing, where they're spreading their arms and dropping to a knee and all that. I'm starting to see a lot more collisions between field players and goalkeepers that are resulting in concussions because they're not getting their head out of the way. And that's one of the things. And as crazy as it sounds, actually putting your head closer to the ball is actually safer than being in that position, leaving your head exposed. And that's something that has really become kind of a personal thing with me, that I'm really focusing on my goalkeepers, because I'm getting a lot of goalkeepers coming into the club and into my environment that, and I'm not saying that save doesn't have a place by any means. It does. But they're using it as a crutch in those 1v1 situations where you and I, our go-to was, you got your hands down, you got your head down, you got your body, and you went through that ball. For the most part, my brain is still activating okay. It has its moments.
I've always said,
but I can tell you, any of the concussions I had were not a direct result of that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I mentioned it in my book. I've rarely seen a goalkeeper certainly get hit in the face with a ball.
Mm-hmm.
And
we're seeing more of that.
Yeah,
we're seeing more of that because they open and they expose everything.
Right. But I don't remember in our day ever getting hit in the face with a ball. And even coming out, even coming out, you get your hands out first. And,
absolutely.
You've got your elbows to protect your head.
Yeah, it's like a window, like you're taking a window picture like this, and you're seeing through this gap.
Yeah.
And that's the other reason with the ankle flexion study we're doing is getting goalkeepers to lead with that upper body and the head, because when that striker or that attacker jumps, the first thing we need them to miss is that youth player's head. Yeah. And so when they land, it's behind them.
Right.
Yeah, you might get clipped in the leg or something like that, which I'd rather you get clipped in the leg than you take one to the head.
In the head. Sure. It's never good. Just back to the videos for a second.
Sure.
Are you finding that videos also has goalkeepers or coaches find tendencies in attacking players, and are we using it to help our goalkeepers when they're playing against that player at a younger age than, say, normal? You would do that up at the higher levels when you're studying the player, but now with all these videos, are you able to study younger players? Is that a factor at all?
Full transparency with me, time is the biggest issue with doing something like that. I wish I had time to take video and break it down that way and be able to get it to all the goalkeepers that I manage and stuff. But also the fact that, particularly in the club system, you don't know who you're playing night in and night out. You show up you get your tournament schedule, and you got a team from here, a team from there, and the likelihood of you having film on them is very minimal. Now at the ECNL level, we could probably start doing something like that. But again, do you have enough film on that particular player to be able to pick up those patterns beyond knowing, hey, he or she's left-footed, he or she's right-footed. Oh, they tend to do this when they're in that situation. Where at the programming, you've got hours of footage just on some players that I'm sure that the pros are using.
For sure. They've
look at all that. I read a book years ago, and there was it would have been pre-2008, because the reference I'm going to use actually deals with the 2008 Champions League final between Chelsea and Man United. There was a firm here in the States that had taken a collection of like all of the world's penalty kicks that were available on film at that time and put them into collections, and these clubs were getting them. And as a result of that, there's some suggestion that David De Gea had enough information. If you go back and watch that, you will see him point. When Drogba takes that PK that he misses, De Gea points to where Drogba typically would go. Drogba tries to change it, and he goes the other way and pushes it wide. So there's that kind of information. I think in that reference, video's been really helpful. Does that mean that but I also think the field players know that they're not dumb. So they're
Yeah.
going to have, they're going to be, they're going to play
Have
those,
stuff on.
they're going to play those games with the goalkeeper as well.
So
You know?
basically, at the youngest of under 14, under 15, you're not. That's not going to be a factor.
I don't
But
think
certainly
I
at
just
the
don't think
higher
we have enough
levels,
film. I just don't think
yeah.
there's any film out
And
there.
at the higher levels, I mean, it's become a game changer in many ways. Where,
Oh, absolutely.
you know,
Oh, yeah. And
everybody,
the ability to break film down. My gosh, John, I can upload, because we live stream everything.
right.
It goes straight to Huddle. I
Yeah.
have to click one button and it goes to their, what they call Huddle Assist. And within 12 hours, I get a full breakdown of the match.
Right.
I mean, it's amazing. Where
So
back in
even
the
a
day,
year,
you and I would have to sit down with like push
didn't
pause
exist.
everything. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
It's pretty amazing.
so it's even at the high school level, I guess there's a lot more footage available for you guys.
Absolutely. You know, COVID changed all that.
Mm-hmm.
It really did, because we weren't allowing fans in the stadiums. So the alternative for all the sports,
Right.
you start live streaming.
Right.
And so, yeah, next Tuesday night, John, if you want to, where am I at? No, you won't be able to see that game. But Thursday, if you want to watch my girls play on YouTube, my girls will be on YouTube.
Oh, okay.
Right here from the friendly confines of Lee Summit High School.
All right.
And then with our VO system that you guys are using, you know as well as anyway. Are you using that system? Or are you just aware of it?
No, some of them. No, yeah.
I mean,
some of our clubs
our
are.
ECNL players at Gallagher, they get film within 24 hours put into their account, and they can go in and break it down and everything.
Wow.
Yeah, it's amazing.
That's been a change in the game, hasn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah,
for sure. What about changing topics just a little bit? Goalkeepers and the height. You know, some kids, you know, at 14, they want to be keepers,
right.
and you're hoping that they grow, and
right.
maybe they're not at the right. Is there still a chance for a keeper under 6 feet to play at a higher level, or is that a dream?
I personally think so.
Yeah,
I do. It's the right. You know, we have to take advantage of their attributes and their abilities that they bring to the game. You know, one of the best small goalkeepers are actually two of them that I can think of right off the head that were in MLS for any length of time, or Nick Raimondo. He was not overly tall. And then John Bush. John Bush was also a rather small keeper. Both of them had excellent careers, and they were not the biggest because they maximized their ability. Both of them were exceedingly good jumpers, very powerful, could move laterally, horizontally across the goal very well. Also both very good with their feet. So I think the game evolution has helped with that. But still, I think that there is a pattern in the culture of coaches worldwide that bigger is better. And so, and you know what? I love the fact that, you know, if I look at my club system, if I look at the goalkeepers I've had at the high school, my most recent goalkeeper at my high school was 6'4". He's a 17-year-old kid.
Yeah.
At the club, I've got another 17-year-old kid that's a junior that he's 6'4". The 06 I was talking about, he's 6'3", and he's only a freshman.
Right.
You know, his dad's a big man.
Right.
But again, with that, the coach and the trainer has to work with those abilities, because there's differences of the way you train that. You know, I've got that big guy. I'm working more on him explosiveness going down. Can we get that frame low? Can we work? And that's where, like, that study I'm doing with the ankle flexion and the hip flexion and the knees and all that, being able to take that center of gravity and drop it and make him more equipped to get low. We know he can get high. We're not worried about that. And then you reverse that with the smaller goalkeeper. Can we get him to understand when intercepting crosses lanes, where I can go into lane? Like, for example, that's something I had to get very good at. You know, I'm 6'1". I played at 171 pounds. I'm not big, but I had to learn how to navigate lanes in order to go intercept crosses. I had to be very good with my feet. I had to be a good leader in the back and be able to organize defenses, or it's going to be a long day for me.
Yeah.
You know, I don't have that big monstrous frame.
Yeah.
And so, and I think that's one of the things we have to encourage our kids to do is, if you truly love the game and you truly love goalkeeping, this is what you want to do. We can find a place for you. We can maximize this. But I think oftentimes we get very short-sighted and we think, oh, well, he's never going to amount to anything. He's only 5'9", 5'10". But you know what? Maybe that kid's already under the realization he's not going to be a professional goalkeeper, but he loves goalkeeper. And maybe he wants to do my job someday. He wants to pour into other kids. So why not maximize that kid? Let's get everything we can out of him or her and do that. Yeah, because we're not all blessed with the same abilities. But we've seen examples where both can be successful in the game.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, we're just about up in our hour. I haven't seen any questions come in. But that's okay. We think we've covered a lot of topics.
Yeah, it's been fun.
And
hopefully it all made sense.
Well, I think so. There's always lots to talk about. The goalkeeping position is often, neglected at times. Sometimes a coach is on his own. He doesn't have a keeper coach. And you got to try and incorporate the goalie in your training sessions.
And stuff like this is important. And one of the things that coaches also we have to get out of the thinking pattern of, oh, I'm the head coach, I'm the field player coach, I have a goalkeeping coach to do that. No, you're the head contractor of the entire team. You have to coach all 11 positions. So you have to have some knowledge of goalkeeping as well, because as a head coach, I don't look at my 9 or my 10 and go, oh, I was a goalkeeper. I don't train those players. I have other people that do that. No, it's on me.
Yeah,
it's my job. So I have to know everything. So we cannot, as coaches, we are doing our teams a disservice to not embrace this position as well.
And so,
we have to embrace that position.
In terms of goalkeeping education, I know that we talked about the diploma courses at the United Soccer coaches
offers. We're starting to do on-site stuff again. I'm really excited to do that. I'm going to try to do 1 or 2 this summer. Try to host a couple here in my area, and I know other staff coaches with the United Soccer coaches are also we're doing the same. And we also have our residential advanced national course as well, which for those that are really interested in, that's a top-notch course.
So for goalkeeping, how many different levels are there for goalkeeping?
Traditionally, it's been the level 1, which is kind of the intro course. And then you have a level 2, which kind of feeds off of that. It would be more kind of 11v11, 9v9 type course. You're adding some pieces. And then once you get to our level 3 course, you're starting to incorporate the goalkeeper more in a team setting or small group setting, a little bit more tactical. And then the advanced national goes more into the coaching the goalkeeper and not so much the training of the goalkeeper and all the basic action stuff. It's more about the goalkeeper within the 4-4-2, within the 4-3-3. So a little more thinking in team. How do we incorporate the goalkeeper into the team training setting?
These are actually diploma courses: a level 1, a level 2, a level 3,
and then the advanced national.
Advanced national.
Yep.
So, and how could they find out more information?
If they
can they take it? Do they have to come to the US?
I believe the level 1 is the only one right now we're offering as an online course.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they should look at United
Soccer Coaches. Yeah. .org.
Or United Soccer Coaches.org.
Is it org? No, it's .com. It's .com. It's a .com.
.com.
Yeah, they're a .com.
Good. And I know in Canada, I think in the province of Ontario, there is at least a level 1 goalkeeper. I'm not sure if they've gone beyond that.
Yep.
But I think it all came from the United Soccer Coaches diploma.
Yeah.
Pretty much took their curriculum from
That's what we need to do, John. We need to collaborate. And you come down and worked for me and done a lot of great work with my programs. I need to come up there, and maybe I'll see if the United Soccer coaches will let me do courses up there.
Well, that'd be good. We'll have to see.
But I don't want to. Again, I don't want to take anything away from your guys' fine association as well. If that's something.
Yeah, our association, we basically don't offer diploma courses. We're additional education because that's been left up to the national body,
Yeah,
and provincial body, I think that's their baby. We just offer things like the bench convention that we started a few years ago. Hopefully, we'll get it restarted. So because of COVID, we had to take a break. Unfortunately, there are no diploma courses, so a lot of Canadian coaches come down to either the convention and take some sort of courses.
Yeah, and we always have a goalkeeping course. They've done a good job of doing a goalkeeping diploma during the week.
Right.
And it actually got a little bit more extensive this year in Kansas City. It went through the week and then finished on Sunday, and there was more classroom stuff. It wasn't just field practicals. So I unfortunately wasn't able to attend this year, but I've heard it went pretty well.
Yeah, and they also have, apart from the convention, your diploma courses are all over. But we'd love to have you in Canada one day. Come and revisit our wonderful country.
Yeah, no, I loved it. Yeah, I loved it up there. I plan on taking my wife at some point back to Calgary because I just so thoroughly enjoyed my time up there.
I've never been to Calgary. It's one of the few cities.
If you end up in Calgary, you have to end up in Banff. You got to go over to Banff, and
I know.
It's so beautiful there.
I hear. But that'll be another day.
Yep.
So again, thanks very much, Dave. And
absolutely, John.
We'll hope to see you again soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thank you for having me.
And if anyone wants to look into things, we'll put it on our website for the goalkeeping course. So again, thanks very much, everyone. Thanks for listening.
Yes, thank you, everyone.
And have a good day.